Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Muslim jurists generally are of the opinion that Muslims should not employ non-Muslims in their organizations and various concerns which they set up. They should be avoided, and Muslims should employ Muslim employees in their organizations. Now, if we study this issue in the original sources of Islam, we find that no hadith, for example, or no Quranic verse prohibits Muslims to keep non-Muslim employees. Now, if we study various works of fiqh or jurisprudence, we come to the conclusion that, for example, we find Ibn Taymiyyah quoting an incident from the time of the Caliph Umar in which he expressed his dislike to Khalid bin Walid and Abu Musa Ashri radhiyallahu ta'ala anhum when he came to know that they had employed financial advisors who were non-Muslims, they were Christians in particular, and he expressed his dislike, and he said that people whom Allah has humiliated, why should you honor them or keep them in your in organizations or employ them for certain tasks? So on the basis of this edict, maybe you can call it an edict or example or act of Umar radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu, as quoted by Ibn Taymiyyah, it is generally the custom that Muslims think that employing non-Muslims in their organizations is not a very good act and it's not a very noble act. Now, if we consider this issue in the whole perspective of the Quran and the Sunnah and authentic narratives, we come to the conclusion that it relates to a specific category of non-Muslims. In the times of the Prophet we know, and in the times of other Rasul also, the Almighty punished people who had deliberately denied the truth. People who knew what the truth was, they were convinced what the truth was, and they still denied the truth. About such people, God actually humiliated them. And the word humiliation, if it is right for any person, any non-Muslim, then it is right for such people who had deliberately denied what they thought was the truth and they still thought that will not believe in it. So for such category of non-Muslims, one can say that, of course, if God has humiliated them, if God has disliked them because of this attitude of theirs, then Muslims should also place them at a secondary level in their life. Now, today, of course, the matters are entirely different. As I said, that this issue relates to a specific law of the Almighty, which is specific to the messengers of God, and the last time that it came into play or came into action was in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, when people who had deliberately denied the truth, they were punished in various categories. Today, of course, this is not the case. People who have deliberately denied cannot be ascertained. We cannot know if a certain person or a non-Muslim is denying the truth intentionally or not, simply because this is a matter which relates to one's heart. And something which relates to one's heart can only be unveiled by the Almighty Himself. And since now we are in no position to have information from the Almighty, the revelations have ceased, we do not get wahi. And after the passage of departure of the last Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the institution of revelation or the institution of wahi has also been terminated. So we cannot have any knowledge of whether a person has deliberately denied the truth or not. So therefore, it would be erroneous to place directives which relate to the addressees of the Rasul and the way they should be treated in those times if we analogously place them with the other non-Muslims of today. Hence, it should be absolutely clear that if in our jurisprudence it is written that one should not employ non-Muslims as employees in our organizations, then of course it relates to a certain category of non-Muslims which was prevalent in the times of the Prophet and his companions who followed him. Today, of course, this is not the case. So it is erroneous and wrong to conclude that today also we cannot hire non-Muslims in our organizations as employees. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات.